I am so excited to share this episode with you because one of my dear friends, Theresa Pantanella, came on the show and we talked about everything from the early days of her entrepreneurial journey all the way into really effective lead generation through getting your audience to actually know who you are before you're trying to generate leads from them. And we dove into the world of AI. Theresa is just an amazing expert in her field. She's somebody that I have hired to coach and work with my team. We've done some projects back and forth over the years, and she's somebody just I really respect, and I know you're going to get a ton of value from this. So dive in and let me know what you think. All right. Thanks for jumping on today, Theresa. I have known you for many years now, and we've worked together off and on in different capacities. And so I'm really excited to have you on the show today. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Gabe. I enjoy working with you and your team. And my goodness, it's really been 9 years. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
I don't know how long it's been. I'd have to look. I think we connected through Brian Kurtz really early on, if I remember right.
Yes.
How long have you been following him?
Oh, my goodness. At least that same amount of time. He's definitely one of my dominoes, if you would. And I remember on one of the very first calls, and you took this offer by this really fast paced guy, Alex Sharfin. And I
Yeah.
thought, golly, who's this Gabe guy? He's got it going on. And I've just seen you do so many wonderful things, not only with your business, but with your life.
Thank you. I'm trying to
Yeah.
grow a little bit every year. If I do that, then I feel like I'm successful and on the right track.
Yeah. You don't sit around and dream, you work on your dreams.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
big into taking action. So much so that in the past 3 or 4 years, I've had to remind myself that I can slow down and take better action if I think a little longer before I act.
You know what, Gabe? I'm getting that lesson pretty hard this year, and I'm grateful for it. Because I have a tendency to just get up in the morning and sit down if I have a lot on my plate. And I'm learning I'm still better off taking my Renaissance time,
Yeah,
taking my time to meditate and do some deep breathing exercises, and I'll have a much better day and get so much more done.
it's wild how that works. I like that Perry Marshall introduced that concept, at least at some of
Yes.
Ryan events. And that's interesting you say that because I've definitely been doing more of the same, trying to wake up instead of jump up, get outside, do my walk, get busy, do whatever I do. Like I actually just sit in bed for 20 or 30 minutes and take time to breathe and journal or check in. And man, you're right. It's such a difference of like stress level and then way better productivity. It feels like everything just happens to get done as compared to like when I wake up and try to force it and go a lot harder.
Yes, it's fascinating to me that to slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
I have a dear friend, and I hung out with her for a couple of days at her place. And she had an immense task of having to move like in 2 weeks. Two bedroom, two bath condo, about 2,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And she literally sat there and hung out with me for 2 days. And
Wow.
I came with boxes and packaging tape. I'm ready to roll. Let's get this stuff going.
Yeah.
And she said, no. And sure enough, towards the end of the second day, people started to call her. Hey, I hear you need some help. Hey, I've got a moving truck. Hey, my team's not doing anything next weekend. I can come help them pull boxes for you and pack boxes. And I just looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, I would have been here for 2 days like a maniac
Yeah.
if I were her,
Yep.
thinking, I've only got 2 weeks. Not her. She
Yeah.
sat there and gave it thought, meditated on it.
Yeah.
Everything just falling into place.
Brilliant. I don't know if I've ever done that moving, but that's probably good advice. Slow it down a little bit.
Right, right. Just let it fall into place. And
Yeah.
with our businesses, with this whole AI thing, you could hang out and let everything like fall into place.
Yeah.
You could. Because I see people getting a little crazy with it, Gabe. I see them getting like, oh, I have to do this now. And oh my gosh, there's this new tool. And did you get these prompts? And oh, I bought these prompts. And this is the coolest tool ever. But look at this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Talk
just slow it down.
Yeah, we've
Slow it
got
down. There
so
applies
much.
to that too.
Yeah, we've got so much shiny object syndrome going on, worse than I feel like a year or two ago for sure, just from AI.
Isn't it interesting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild. There's
Yeah.
so much opportunity that I think the opportunity cost people aren't really counting, and so it can impoverish people super quickly. If you're trying to grab onto everything, you'll lose what you have. And definitely something to pay attention to.
Old nuggets you give out.
Thank you.
Yeah, Gabe's dropping them. It's normal. If you're listening to Gabe, you're in the right place.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm curious because we're going to catch up to modern day here as we talk today, but we've talked off and on. But I don't know if you've ever told me your story. When did you figure out you're an entrepreneur and what led up to that? And what's your journey been like? Because we had you and Charlene and I had dinner a while ago now,
Yeah.
and you and I have talked and worked together. And so I've gotten pieces of your story. But tell me what led you here to where you're at today.
It's a great story. My grandfather came over from Italy when he was 2 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we're talking like the 1920s. And he went to school like you're supposed to do, but didn't have any shoes. He went to go work in a shoe repair store. And eventually he bought that shoe repair store. And
Wow.
then he bought another one and another one. And then he had this huge military contract. He was in every single Woolworths, Tickies, and Five and Dimes across America, every state except Alaska.
Wow.
Yeah, so those big Sunday family Italian dinners, I was hanging out at the end of the table with Grandpa and Dad. That was a little more exciting to me than what color nail polish I should have on, and I
Yeah.
should be out dating and talking about boys. And Grandpa, he gave me a couple golden nuggets. And one of them was, honey, if you're ever going to do anything for yourself, if you're ever going to get ahead, if you're ever going to enjoy life, you need to be in business for yourself. And he's got the really nice silk shirt on, and he's got the big 18 karat gold rope chain with the figgy hanging off it in his chest pocket.
Wow.
He's got those big bushy Italian eyebrows. I said, really, Grandpa? And he's, yeah. Well, it's time to go to college. He said, what are you going to learn? Why would you do that? This is a man who never finished high school.
Yeah, a lot of people from that generation was like that. My grandpa, I think, finished like fourth grade, maybe.
Yeah, that whole generation is just fascinating.
Yeah,
And I did go to college and I got this degree in occupational therapy. And the whole time I'm sitting here thinking, how do I do a business with this? Now, here's the funny part. I'm looking for how to figure out how to do a business with occupational therapy and healthcare. And I'm down here in South Florida, and this fad came out where a woman would take a condom and make an earring out of it.
wow, I've never heard of that. Oh my god.
So I was like, I could do that and sell them. I was so serious about it, Gabe. I went to a patent attorney. I thought for sure I had the idea that was going to make me $1 million.
Oh my god, that's awesome. Holy cow, that's awesome.
That was my first entrepreneurial adventure.
So
I
how'd that,
painted the condoms. I decorated them with jewels. I hung them on a little earring tree. I took them to craft shows.
you could show us pictures.
Right.
Oh my god. So you didn't make $1 million?
No, I didn't make $1 million.
Did you sell any though? I'm curious. Did you sell
I
any?
sold maybe 2 pairs.
All right.
Because people were like, I think they were too embarrassed to buy. And I'm
Yeah.
like 20 something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I painted over anything that identifies it as a real the real product.
Oh
So
my
they didn't
god.
know what they were buying. And it
Yeah.
was that was my first entrepreneurial jaunt. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what happened after that? After your massive sales success with your first product?
Yes, massive. I did not retire and move to Hawaii on a golden beach under palm trees. I've learned about something called agency work for therapists.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to work for an agency and I was doing some moonlighting on the side. My wheels got to rolling and I was like, I could have an agency. And it was one of those things that, as an entrepreneur, and I know your listeners have felt this, that when you're doing the right thing at the right time, things fall into place.
Yeah.
And my neighbor, she handed a business card over the fence to me. She says, look, this is the director of nurses for our nursing home. We need an occupational therapist. Will you please go talk to her? You're such a nice person. I went and talked to her, and yes, it was my first contract. And I hired some of the other therapists to work with me. And that grew into my very real business where I turned a buck. I had
Yeah.
invoicing, I had employees, I had to have systems in place, I had to have protocols. I was meeting regularly with my clients. I was doing the Christmas gift thing. Oh my gosh, I remember when I first incorporated and I looked at the administrator of the nursing home and he's like, where have you been this morning? And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I had to go do this thing. I had to do this incorporation. And he looked at me and said, that's wonderful. Congratulations. And just if you're around people that support you, especially when it's your clients,
Yeah.
it makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so important to find the right people to hire, to the right clients. That makes business great, or the wrong people makes it hell. That's for sure.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I know your listeners probably have those war stories and
Yeah.
they just had bells go off in their head. I
Yeah.
know I've had my war stories. You've had your war stories. But when you have that right client and the right people around you, wow, what a difference.
Yeah.
So 24 years of healthcare. And for me, the marketing was what I really like to do. I ran into a guy, he's the physician founder of the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine.
Hmm.
I learned things that you don't learn in the traditional healthcare world, became seriously unenamored of traditional healthcare, was fascinated with holistic healthcare and how our bodies function, and delved into that, wrote a book on how to detoxify the body from radioactive nuclear particles because the Fukushima plant had just blown up and I was focused on detox.
Yeah.
I built a little detox clinic. I'm a true entrepreneur, Dave. I'll keep running after it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And that detox clinic did not take off. It was definitely in the wrong neighborhood. Friends of mine warned me, do not open in that neighborhood.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah. It just didn't. It was only a quarter of a mile from the wealthiest zip code in South Florida.
Hmm.
I found out a quarter of a mile is too great of a distance for that clientele to go do anything.
Man. Yeah, you'd think that's pretty close in a metro.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyhow, I enjoy the marketing. And in the process of getting the detox clinic up and running, I learned a lot about videos and started editing videos myself. And I had to build a website. So I got the website built, and then I discovered there's a whole market for that.
How long ago was that when you built your first website? I'm curious how close it is to when I built and sold my first website.
Oh, it was definitely after yours, I think. Mine was probably like 2010.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I built my first ones like in the late 90s or early 2000s. That's when I
Yes,
built.
I remember you telling me, Gabe, that you've been doing this internet thing for so long, and some of the things I've never even heard of.
Wow.
Just amazing stuff you can do with
Yeah.
marketing. No wonder your agency does so well and can provide such fantastic services. Yeah, I've stayed in that marketing lane, and you do the marketing and the tech stuff.
Yeah. We started out in tech because, like, similar to you, I built my construction company with figuring out the sales and marketing end. I
Yeah.
didn't figure out the financial management end. And I got in huge trouble with the IRS and
Whoops.
almost went to federal prison for fraud because of some big mistakes I made in the finances. Like I had like between two clients in '07, their credit lines got frozen because the housing market was crashing. And then I got stuck for $250,000. And then everybody thought I intentionally screwed everybody, which I
Ah,
obviously it was my responsibility to be financially responsible. And I wasn't. I was like days away from federal fraud charges. And
oh,
I had somebody step in and literally save my life that knew the sheriff of the county that I was living in. And he took me up
Wow.
there to the sheriff, and he said, "This is just an unofficial meeting." He said, "But you need to come with me." And he took me up, and we met with the sheriff. And the sheriff said, "Our job here is to investigate things and look into things, but I appreciate you coming in and telling me what your side of the story was." And I walked out, and the cops never called me again.
Wow.
It was wild. I was
Wow.
not in a good place. And I had people threatening to kill me back then because of how.
Ah, the pressure and the stress must have been
Yeah,
like gut wrenching, your breathing stopping.
yeah. I was
Yeah.
there was actually a couple times leading up to that where I had such a bad panic attack and like stress pain that I actually fell on the ground from it. You're right. It was it was too
Wow.
much. And I was like, I guess I didn't die, then I'll keep going instead of actually resolving the issues. But anyway, similar to what you were saying, I learned how to sell and market on the front side. And so when I went bankrupt and closed that business and went through one of the toughest seasons of my life, I just moved into saying like, all right, I know I built and sold websites for my friends and I built a couple for myself. So I got into building websites and did that for a few years and then added on content marketing later and then pay per click and then SEO and like just stacked from the technology side. And so different than a lot of marketing agency owners that I run into who
Mhm.
started on the marketing side and like maybe have added in tech. We started on the tech side and added in the marketing. And I think it's been an advantage because like we do things differently and how we build things and the processes we build. So yeah, it's similar to you. My first couple businesses were practice rounds. So,
The practice rounds are good. I
yep.
have a nephew and he loves to try entrepreneurial things. And he's going through his practice rounds.
Yeah.
We were on the phone the other night and he was lamenting he's got to move like 5,000 pieces of product. And he said, I just want to sell them. I said, no, you want to double what you put into it
Yes.
because everything's energy. And I'm like, don't focus on breaking even, focus on doubling your money.
Good advice.
If the practice round is going to be a practice round, at least double your money.
Exactly. At least get something out of it. Yeah.
All right, it might not be $1 million.
Right. It's always great if you can end up with some money left in your pocket when you pay for your lessons, ideally.
I agree with that. I
Yeah.
agree with that. 100%. I've
So
got
you,
war scars from it.
yeah. And so, with what would you say? Because I've seen plenty of people open business locations where they shouldn't. So, looking back, what would you have done differently in that part of the journey? Do you think now?
What I would have done differently is I would have listened to my heart.
Mm,
I knew I was spreading myself thin, and I was willing to roll the dice on that. Yeah, see, where my grandpa is a steady Eddie, shrewd businessman, can work a good deal. My father was very much the go after the quick buck. And that's part of my DNA that I work constantly to push out of my thoughts. Yeah, because I love my dad. He was a great guy. And he built he's a successful businessman in his own right.
so
Grandpa had the shoe repair stores, and my dad had jewelry and watch repair stores. And he had a whole chain of them through the Midwest and Florida. He actually learned how to fly a plane so he could get around to the stores.
that's so cool. You know who else did that is Sam Walton. The reason that he got his pilot's license was so that he could fly over new metro areas and like new regions. And he would just look and see where they were building, and he would build his Walmart like to meet the neighborhoods that were expanding over the
Yes.
next 12 to 24 months.
Yes, he knew where they were going.
Yeah, it was
That's
really
like Wayne Gretzky. Go where the hockey puck's going to be.
exactly. Yeah,
Yes. If you know where your people are going to be, go there.
yeah, that's amazing. So your dad just got to get to fly to all those locations and not have to worry about commercial travel that way.
He did. Mom and him actually had a lot of fun with the plane. Mom got her license also. They're both going to be in the plane. If something happens to one,
It's a
they
good
want,
idea.
yeah. It was very wise. And they got a twin engine. So they would always have at least one engine, hopefully.
Nice.
They would fly from Toledo, Ohio to Sandusky for a milkshake on a Sunday afternoon.
Wow.
That was their practice runs. They did a trip to the Bahamas, and Mom loved telling the story of going to the straw market in Nassau. And she bought these great big huge baskets. They're famous for their basketry. And it's such a fine craft there, and the most beautiful baskets that'll last your lifetime. And she bought this huge, like it stood 3 feet high, and it was probably 20 inches in diameter, if not 24. And people
Yeah.
would tell her, ma'am, you're not going to get that on the plane. But she'd smile and she'd say, I'll have to talk to the pilot.
She might be able to convince him.
Right, right. Well, I guess I might know somebody at the airport.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So dad was successful in his own right. And it's for me and moving forward, that one location, I wanted to roll the dice. I wanted to make it happen in spite of everything. It
Hmm.
was such a cool idea. And okay, one of the items we wanted to put in the detox clinic was a salt room.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about where you're at in Cleveland, but down here in South Florida, salt rooms are pretty common now.
Yeah, we have a bunch here now, but only in the last 3 to 5 years, I think, is what you
Exactly.
make this.
Yeah, almost 14 now. What am I thinking, 10? It was way before my time.
Yeah.
And I did not have the marketing budget for that. Because it's when you bring a new product to market or new concept or new service, you have the cost of educating the market.
Yeah.
And that's the curious part about the whole AI thing is when a new tool comes out, they give it to you for free.
Hmm.
Kind of like,
Free taste. And then you
exactly.
pay later if you end up digging into them, which is, yeah, the freemium marketing model definitely has a lot of merit in the SaaS, like in the AI software SaaS platforms. I think that those platforms, it's easier to scale with a freemium, like use it for free and then buy the upgrades that are so good, or then they cut off free and the people that stay pay.
Right.
I've seen that work really well with obviously Dropbox, I think is one of the greatest examples of freemium. They went viral with their share, invite somebody else and you both get 2 extra gigs, or I don't think it was 2 gigs back then, but whatever it was. That model always stands out to me. But yeah, I love what you're saying about educating the market. And I think that I've noticed, and I'm curious what you'll think about this, because it relates to like what you're talking about with your story of choosing the wrong location. You probably couldn't get the market exposure you needed and all those things. But I've noticed recently that I feel like small business owners have abandoned brand style educational marketing in such a big way that when they put something out there that might be a great offer, they don't have a warm enough audience. They don't have any market awareness. And so we're actually doing something that I know I brought it up in one of Brian's calls a couple within the last few weeks, but we're leading with branding first for our clients. And we're getting way better lead gen results if we just start branding 30, 60, 90 days ahead of time. And I feel like you've actually taught us some of that too when you've come in and trained with our department about, hey, let's just run video ads to develop this audience. And what do you think? What do you think about that? Because I tend to see the ads and the gurus who have no experience talking about, here, put this offer out, do this lead gen. Here's how you're going to get qualified leads. They all just go straight to lead gen. Like, how are we going to get people to contact you? And I'm sitting back and saying, nobody knows you or trusts you. Why would they ever put their information in your form? Or if you do get it, it's somebody that doesn't care, or it's just super spammy stuff. So how do you see brand building to lead generation, like the way that you, because you're an expert in it?
Thanks, Gabe. You know what? I remember you commenting on that. And I was like, yes. Because I'm doing the Facebook ads for clients now. And matter of fact, I had a great conversation with a prospect yesterday to get him to understand he needs to be out there and create a brand awareness first.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, no, I need people to buy my class.
Obviously you do, but you can't do that first.
No, you can't. You can't. And I explained to him the whole no trust factor. And if you build a community first, they're the ones that are going to buy your class without even thinking about it, because they trust you. They like you. They know they're going to get value from you. And and just like so many other business owners I've talked to, he had all the right answers for all the right components to put into his class.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew what he was going to be teaching, and he knew the value of what he was going to be teaching. But until people get to know him, they're still not going to buy from him.
Yeah.
The branding's huge. I just launched some ads yesterday for a client, And I did use some of the features on Facebook that create brand awareness. I'm going to take responsibility for this. I did not warn the client. I did not explain the full process to him. And sure enough, I got an email this morning of what the heck is this?
Yeah.
Is this what you're spending my money on? Clear communication with your client before you take action is a benefit.
Goes a long way.
But I could have saved them that jolt this morning.
Mm-hmm.
The brand awareness is something that is key to any campaign. Yeah. And here's the thing. I really suggest business owners have brand awareness going on 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Spend $5 a day. Have something going, have a message going out there, whether it be a podcast interview. Oh, I'm giving away the goodies now. Okay. Yeah. Everybody lean in. I got something special for you.
That's why you're here.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So always have at least a $5 a day ad running. And you can break that ad up into 5 videos at $1 a day. And those videos can be, you want them to be at least 30 seconds. I'm a big advocate of 2 minutes because then you know if the person's really interested or not. Like you can segment your audiences after they've watched 50% of your video, even 25% of your video. So if it's a 2-minute long video and they've watched 30 seconds of it, which is 25%, you really have an interest in what you're doing. That's the person you want to retarget.
Yeah.
If they've gone and watched 3 seconds of your video and turned it off, they're not interested. That's not your audience. That's not your prospect. That's not where your branding goes. And this is why branding is important also. It's going to start to segment out who's interested and who's not. So when you do go to pay a higher dollar amount, let's say you're ready to sell a course, you're ready to promote a product, you're going to have that Mother's Day sale. This, now you've already, you fine-tuned in the algorithm of who's interested in you. Mm-hmm. This is going to slice your costs down right there because now you're not spending a higher dollar amount per day on an ad, on a sales ad, and having that sales ad test markets, test who's going to listen to it, who's going to respond. The algorithm already knows no matter what platform you're using, whether it be Facebook, Google, YouTube, TikTok, you want to train that algorithm on who responds to you. So if you've got $5 a day out there running for brand awareness, that will help you keep your costs down when you run the sales ads. Do your testing on a less expensive ad. Take a podcast interview like what Gabe and I are doing now. You can either cut out really good golden nuggets out of it, or you can run the whole thing to people that are your inner circle, if you will. Let's say they've watched that 25% or 30 seconds of a 2-minute video. Now you want to retarget them on longer videos, on bigger pieces of content. Mm-hmm. And really let them get to know you. Have those conversations with them. When people are using lead magnets, the conversation then can go to email.
Yeah.
And the email marketing becomes key. They're still part of your world. You still can run an ad to them through your email list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your audience may already know about using an email list for their ads. Some people don't. And one of the things I'm learning is never assume what people know and don't know. Share with them what I feel is going to be helpful. And that brand awareness is key. Yeah, it's more than your logo. It's your personality.
It makes me think about, I think what's shifted over the last 30 years, which is a long time. I think what shifted is that small business owners were completely reliant on their local market, the vast majority of them.
Yeah.
Unless they already had sophisticated marketing in place or were doing stuff internationally or nationally, which they usually did through direct mail, radio, TV, like traditional media, right? But for the vast majority of, and it was super expensive back then, it's still relatively expensive for traditional media. But now, so if I think about your detox center,
yes,
obviously you said you chose the wrong location, but if you were in the right location, it would have been like you would have sandwiched yourself between, I'm just making up, you would know your market better, but like maybe the high end spa and the high end gym.
Oh
Because
yeah.
then you have foot traffic coming in there and people would start to see you and they might
Yeah.
stop in, come through the front door and look around. And then over time, they're like, oh, Dr. Teresa is still open. She's still there. So she must be legitimate at some level. And then they'd come in again. And with old school traditional marketing or local marketing that happened organically, it was all about being in the Rotary and going to the school events and sponsoring the football team and like doing all those things,
Yeah,
which are still really valid for some service businesses. Like I see clients just
absolutely.
crush it with that.
Absolutely.
The difference now is I think that the consumer behavior has shifted so much because now instead of leaving our house, going to town and buying the things we need, we sit on our phones or our computers and buy the things we need. And so we have this conglomeration of targeting and things that we've noticed in all these businesses targeting us. And a business from California can crowd out my local provider of something if they just target me, as long as they invest in the brand. But most people hope or assume or wish that they're still getting like that local market exposure. Like I'm in business, so people should know about me, which was true back then. Like it really was true the way the communities operated. But now like society's shifted so much that if we don't invest in branding, then you get drowned out by everything else. And you don't have to reach 100,000 people even. If
No.
you reach, I'm sure you have campaigns for clients that run, you reach a small set, like consistently get in front of the right 5,000 or 10,000 or maybe 20,000 people, and that's maybe even larger than necessary sometimes too, then they trust you and they keep coming back and you get that long-term relationship. But I think that digital has crowded out business owners who didn't understand the principles of brand,
Yeah.
and now they're suffering. So I'm curious what you think about that.
I have to say that at the beginning of the year, I was having a conversation with a business colleague. We've known each other probably 20 years. And she's really heavy into MLMs and does very well for herself. And I mentioned to her, I was thinking about going back to some of the networking meetings this year and just getting out there and talking to people again. And she said, Theresa, everything has changed. She said, I've tried that. People aren't going to meetings. You're better off sitting at home and doing your ads like you normally do. Joining a networking group on Zoom, because that's what people are used to. And
Yeah.
I feel bad for the local businesses. Gabe, I think she's right. I did go out to one local networking meeting.
Mm-hmm.
There were 7 people there. I had a lovely time catching up with them, but there's no reason for me to go back for like 90 days.
Exactly. And out of the 7, who would be actually somebody you need to work with or is a fit, right? It's a pretty
Right,
low,
right.
be tough odds to make that work.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, here's the curious part about it. It's very industry specific. It's real estate specific. It used to be many different industries in there.
Yeah.
So I have to wonder for real estate agents, the people that are in that industry, the title agencies, the closing agents, the
Mm-hmm.
inspectors, maybe they're still doing business face to face and the
Yeah.
networking is still necessary. So from a perspective of that industry, it's probably still very valid for them to do that.
I would agree. I don't, since that's such a big purchase, one, I think people ideally want to be face to face with somebody that they're is helping them spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or
Right.
more. And yeah, like owning a neighborhood or multiple communities as a real estate agent is still, I think, is still the number one strategy. Run
Absolutely.
billboards, do direct mail, and just coat the market with digital, and then you'll be the only person that they think about. They got,
Exactly. And
and
that's
then
branding.
yeah, exactly. And with I don't know what this, I forget what the years is of how long people stay in a home, but I think it's only 3 to 5 years.
It's not
It's like
long.
it's which just blows my mind. But anyway, that's the
Yeah.
average of how long people stay somewhere. But still, that's a long sales cycle if it's 5 years.
It is.
So
But
in
state
order
attorneys have
to
long sales cycles like that.
exactly very long sales cycles, and yeah, so if you just own brand awareness for the whole market, then you're virtually guaranteed to get the business almost without running any type of targeted direct response lead gen, which I know that I'd be thrown out of the other room that you and I hang out with. Hey, by saying that, that did not ruin. But
We won't
I
tell anybody you said that.
good.
Oh, this is going live?
But it just blows my mind how like I think that I'm learning slowly because I'm generally more extreme in my views I have in my life. But I think over time I'm learning that there's so much on the spectrum of what works.
Yes.
So obviously I know incredibly gifted direct response copywriters that don't really need a brand, honestly, because they can just target the right people and suck them in, and they're so masterful at that. And still, if they had a brand, it would make it even better.
It
And then on the
would.
other end of the spectrum, like as a real estate agent, or there's a big personal injury attorney in Cleveland who solely focuses on brand. I actually got connected to him through another friend. I'm good, but he owns every billboard on every major highway in the
Wow.
whole 2 or 3 million population of Cleveland and the suburbs.
Wow. That's a
So
focused effort.
he only spends on brand, and he's the only guy. Like nobody touches him. And I actually have
Wow.
had over the years, I've had some personal injury attorneys in the same local market here, and a handful of them would be like, yeah, like he's crushing it, he's doing the right way. And most people just make fun of him because they don't know how to compete with him. But I'm like, you can't argue with the guy. Like
No.
he's the only guy.
Wow.
And I'm sure he's probably spending 50 grand a month. He's spending, but
On billboards.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's the repetition over time. Unless he stops that, he will own the biggest personal injury law firm, if he doesn't already, in Cleveland and probably like Northeast Ohio. And
Wow.
so trusting, I think branding is super effective when you have a great product and service and you're getting good results, because word of mouth and branding obviously are super tied together. And you
Absolutely.
can't, and marketing doesn't work if your product sucks, obviously.
You got to
And
have a good
so,
product or good service.
yeah, exactly. But if you nail down the basics of take good care of your customers, your clients,
Yeah.
then branding, I think, is to me like one of the lowest cost, highest return plays if you just do it long enough.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And when you say it's the lowest cost, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's the lowest cost. It's a small investment, and it's
mhm,
the place to start.
yeah,
Absolutely. And without that, like you said, there's really seriously talented direct response marketers that don't need branding. You got to pay
yeah,
for
I know.
that. You got that is a commodity, as our friend Brian would say. That's a
Yeah,
heavy price commodity, and if you don't have the branding, it's probably a little more pricier
yeah,
to get the
exactly.
results.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And when you make an investment like in that level direct response copywriter, the greats are going to want 50 down and a big percentage of what you sell, like 50,000 or more down. And there's huge packages up front. And so I think when I've seen clients that aren't ready for that buy that and not get results, and then I had to go back and remind them and say, you didn't get results. It's not because the copy was bad. Like I know the copywriter, right? Or I looked at it and I
Yeah.
know that it can perform, but your market doesn't know you. And so the offer doesn't matter. And that's something that, again, like we've really shifted focus on this year to help people say, all right, first things first, do you have active branding? And like you said, it's a few $100s a month. It's not, we're not talking about these
Right.
heavy advertising budgets. You spend 3, 5, maybe 100 a month, maybe $1,000, and you can just coat your market. And then you've got to have the patience and the foresight to realize that the first time they see that, they're not going to pick up the phone and call you. That's not the point of branding. It's the how many repetitions over 6 months, a year, 2 years. And then eventually I look at companies that we've helped do that and that we've been part of the process of doing that. Their
Yeah.
phone just rings all the time. They have stuff incoming, and one of the challenges sometimes is you can't attribute it to this branding ad or this thing. You
That's
you
true.
you
Definitely
have
wrong.
visibility that a bunch of people watch this video or a bunch of people saw it. It's not that you don't have any analytics, but you can't necessarily tie through, I spent this $10 and got this lead, but they're still coming in. And so that's one of the things that I've always struggled to set an expectation and communicate with clients. And I'm curious how you're communicating that now, because I know you do that really well for clients, is like, this is just something you got to do if you want good results. And like, you can't always draw a perfect
Yeah.
line from that dollar to this result. I don't know how you approach that. I'm curious.
You know what, Gabe? I've learned over time that it comes down to the end result. What are they getting?
Yeah.
And I actually had a client that he insisted we just turn off the awareness ads.
Wow.
And within 6 weeks, his sales costs went up, and he was like, "Please turn those back on." Yeah. And the guy this morning, okay, so you had said it doesn't cost a lot to do brand awareness.
Mm-hmm.
The turning point in the conversation was when I told him the ad ran to 349 different people for less than $3.
That's pretty affordable. $100.
Exactly. 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 And he was like, what? That's all I paid? And I'm like, yeah, I'm happy to turn the ad off. You've spent
Yeah.
$3 and
It's your
349
money.
people know who you are now. They may not remember you because over time,
Yeah.
you create a memory on people. For example, all right, people need to see an ad 20 times on social media before they take action. But think about it.
Yeah.
When you're going out to buy a car, it's the same process as when you're figuring out what deodorant to buy
Yep.
or what new widget for your office. You're going through a process. It's the same whether it's a high ticket item or a low ticket item. You're going through that process of learning about the product, learning about who sold it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you even remember anybody selling it?
Yeah.
And remembering it is what branding is all about, remembering that person. Yeah. I had a guy that called me up after meeting me 3 years ago because he kept seeing me on social media. He kept seeing my ads.
Nice.
Exactly. And he was like, I would have forgotten about what you do if it wasn't for your ads.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to play the long game. You can't, like you just said, 3 years.
Yeah, after 3 years.
Of you nurturing that lead, basically, or that prospect. And he wasn't clicking in and downloading your ebooks, or he wasn't like, you had no signal except for he was a stat in your stats, right? But
Yes.
you could say, oh, that was this client. Exactly. Like the longer term view we take, the more effective and profitable our marketing is. And it just drives me bonkers what people are trying to sell. Stand this up and get results in 30 days, or stand this up and do, yeah, you'll have results or you'll have stats or something, but you're not actually going to get the big result of what you want if
No.
you're looking at it in such a short,
A short
almost irrelevant
window.
time frame. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole concept of ads and is not today and not the last week, but who saw your ad and how many times over the last 30 days, over the last 90 days? Who went to your website over those same time frames? I have ads I run that target people who've been to the website for the last 180 days. And
Yeah.
depending on what the product is and the sales cycle, I'll set up my retargeting accordingly. Now, what I'm really curious about, Gabe, and this is a conversation for the times for sure, is with this AI thing, I've been told that a stack of AI tools can be set up to think like how I think and make these same decisions about who to retarget, how long to run the ad, the price point to target on like a cost per click or a cost per lead or cost per sale, cost per conversion. Now I've been playing a little bit with it. So far, the results aren't 100% on target.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know there's people listening that are running ads or using AI. And I'm looking at the concept of using AI so that I can be a better media buyer,
Yeah.
so that I get better results. Now, just like people are using ChatGPT and they're like, oh, garbage in, garbage out, I don't get good results. The same thing with any tool I would use with my ads.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not setting that tool up for success, I'm not going to get good results.
Yeah. I agree, because AI is super powerful. It's obviously it's going to change history forever. Like it's a big disruption.
Yeah.
It's like the internet version 3 or whatever, people Web 3.0 or whatever people are throwing around as that concept. But you're exactly right. It's just a tool. So a tool is only good as the person wielding the tool. And
Yes.
like when ChatGPT released or opened up the GPT market, like in the last, I don't know, 30 days, 60 days, something like that.
The GPT store.
Oh my God.
What a scam. I
There's
shouldn't
so much
say that.
garbage
Shouldn't say
there.
that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a scam, but it's a perfect example of how low level thinking gives you garbage results,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't
Oh,
have
yeah.
experience to ask the right questions or do the right things. And so we're building for a client right now a medical education platform
Oh, awesome.
for really niche specific part of the medical industry. And I happened to go through the GPT store and see quote unquote competitors of this. And so I was like, all right, I'll just ask the questions. And it wasn't even in the realm of accurate or useful or anything. And it's because what the challenge of new technologies, like all new technologies, in my opinion, but especially we can see it really clearly with AI, is that it gives the perception of ease. And then people go, oh, it's easy. And it is, but it's only effective if you know what questions to ask or what structure put in. So like you could use AI and run your campaigns more effectively because you know what manually how to do everything, and you've run maybe millions of dollars. I don't know, you run tons and tons of ad spend.
Right.
And
Oh yeah.
but I could go in.
Yeah.
You've run way more ad spend on Facebook than me. I'm confident of that, especially me personally. But I could go take your same AI tool set for ads and get abysmal results because I don't actually have the experience level, and I could hack my way through it. And even if I got something working, I couldn't tell you why it was working. So then that's not really a tool. That's like a oops, I made it work somehow.
Right.
And it's the experience level that we bring to a tool that makes the tool useful. And I just wish that people would talk about that more, because it's not, having capability doesn't mean it's just like having the fastest car in the country. If you don't know where, you're going to end up somewhere bad or right where you started, and or worse, in the wrong neighborhood. So I think it's going to be really interesting, because I think instead of AI eliminating jobs, like it will without question, but I think that instead of this big fear of it's going to eliminate tons of jobs, I think it's actually going to segment out the people that have more experience, are more intentional about how they think and communicate and operate, and it's going to give massive leverage to people that were already skilled in what they do.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy time to be alive, that's for sure.
You know what, it reminds me of something a mentor shared with me once. How you do anything is how you do everything. Yeah. So if you're sloppy about running your business, if you're sloppy about managing your books, if you're sloppy about your marketing, you're going to be sloppy with your AI. And it's not going to work for you.
It's going to be exponential slop.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're right.
And I know for me, when I heard about this whole AI thing last spring, I didn't believe it. Nah, that's a cute tool. And then I was at a Perry Marshall event last May, and it was serious. And at that time I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I need to learn this stuff. Yeah. So I learned a few things, and I called up a couple girlfriends and I said, hey, I want to give a presentation about what I learned. Like, okay. Yeah. So I gave them this presentation, and after 20 minutes, I said, did you learn at least 3 things? And they're like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is cool. I said, would you be open to us getting together a couple times a month and we can share what we learned with each other?
Yeah.
And they said yes. And the Accelerated AI Club was born.
That's awesome.
And now instead of us trying to teach each other, we still do that. But I also have people that specialize in a particular AI tool or AI function come talk to us. And it's so cool because it's an hour-long call. So it's not like you're giving up half your day.
Yeah.
But you can get in there and really just, what I like about it is I can talk to the person right there and get questions answered.
Yeah.
And what I'm learning is that the people that come to the calls really enjoy seeing each other and sharing those tips and helping each other out. Yeah. So I would suggest to anyone who's listening, you don't have to do this by yourself.
Yeah.
Go find a friend, find a community where others are doing it. And maybe in your own industry, you could be the leader there. Mm-hmm. You could be the person that spearheads, hey, once a month, let's get together, share some trade secrets on how to use AI. Because like you said, there's a lot of shiny objects out there with AI right now. It's intense and it can waste a lot of time. But if you're with other people that are showing how to use it, you don't waste time trying to figure it out. And B, right away if you need it or you don't need it. Because you don't need all this stuff, right? Who needs all of AI? Sam Woods uses 5 AI tools. That's it.
Yeah.
5.
And he's an expert in it.
Yeah. I remember meeting him at Brian's mastermind last spring?
Yeah, that was an incredibly valuable conversation because I feel like he was sharing some of the same sentiments of that. This is going to elevate experience and intelligence and expertise to such a new level, and it's going to leave behind a lot of people that aren't willing to invest that much time in becoming masters at what they do. Not masters at one tool,
Right.
masters at what they do.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Key difference. Masters at what you do.
Yeah.
And this is what AI is going to enable. Okay. Your competitor's got the same opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So how you do anything is how you do everything. You're either going to get focused and learn some of these AI tools, or you're going to go by the wayside. I know. I tell people, pick one tool. Give yourself 15 minutes on your schedule, 15 minutes a day, and just play with it. See what it'll do. And you're going to love this, Gabe. I've got my...
Yeah. I almost brought up calculators earlier because I'm like, if you know how to ask the right questions, you can get good results back, and that's all that AI is. It's not as magic as people think, or as
if you don't put the numbers into the adding machine or the calculator,
it won't come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right. I still have the adding machine my dad bought me in college. Yeah. Awesome. I like the paper tape.
I have an old Corona typewriter that I've used a few times. Like I would wear it out if I tried to use it. But I love looking back at technology like that because as much as it feels like I can think back to Facebook Live, that was a big deal when it came out. Yeah. And we can look at AI as it is today, and it's a big deal. But what's really fascinating is that all the technology we have today is just like the next generation and stacked on top of principles that people built years ago. And I get this news brief from this news, like what I've considered to be pretty unbiased news source called 1440. It's join1440.com if anybody's interested. I love it because in 5 minutes I'm caught up on everything. And I get like relevant snippets, and it's very unbiased. It's probably completely unbiased, which is hard to say in today's world, but I feel like it's very unbiased. So I love it, and I just get a snapshot of the news. But in the last section of the newsletter, they have etc. Like here's random things, or it's just fun stuff to look at, or something that's entertaining, or something from history. And I looked at this video, and I feel like it was between the 30s and the 50s is my guess of when this originated. But they talked about how they used to wire pictures.
Oh.
And so what they would do is they would put a picture on a roller and turn it, and they would have a photo. They would have a light sense, like a light through a little aperture shine on the photo. And the light was transmitting back to this like transistor if it was reflecting or if it was like absorbing on dark. So it was like the original fax machine, basically, but it would pick up all the data, transfer it over a wire, an active line.
Yeah.
And then the electrode, I forget what the transistor on the other end would be receiving a higher level of signal or a lower level based on just like essentially reflecting off the light or dark of the picture, because it was black and white, no pictures back then, obviously. And then it would roll it onto the other end.
Yeah.
And then they would be able to put a picture in the paper same day from across the country or across the Atlantic or whatever. And
miracle.
So anyway, yeah, it was just crazy. But I think about that, and that was basically about 100 years ago, something like that. And we just keep improving on what we're doing. And so when new technology comes out, I'm always like asking myself, how can I deconstruct it, at least in my head, or deconstruct my understanding of it? Because it's just a either small or large leap iteration from what we've already had. And it's all based on all the technology and the principles and everything we have. And that way, there's really nothing scary about it when I look at things that way. And it helps me understand the inputs. And I always view life and business and a lot of things through input output. So if I understand the inputs, then I'm going to understand the outputs better.
Yes.
And AI is a huge step forward. And it's just a collection of everything we've been building for the last 20, 30 years in technology. So that it's not as mysterious as people make it out to be, I guess is my point.
So you're right. One of the gals in the Accelerated AI Club, she's able to tell the story about AI and how it really was around in the 1990s. And they had to put the genie back into the bottle, if you will.
Yeah.
Because the public wasn't ready for it. And now it's basically been repackaged and refined in a way that people find it palatable. Yeah. And I know this is important to think about for the business owners that are listening, is refining the systems that you have in your business is key to using AI to save you time in your operations. So I see people using it to create content. I'm not seeing a lot of people use it to actually define the parameters of what happens in their business. Now, thinking about Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, where the woman's making the pies and she doesn't have the systems in place. When she does finally put systems in place, she's able to focus on the business.
Yep.
Yes, and I've heard about people with E-Myth certifications and entire factories run without them. And during COVID, they went in for 3 days and redefined the processes, and they went back home for the next 3 years. You know, everything ran without them. I heard that. I don't know if it's true or not. I heard that. But think about if you had that stack of AI tools that really helped define how your operations work. It makes you stop and think about how your business is really operating. I know with marketing, and we talk to clients about lead generation or sales conversions, you have to have a funnel in place, and it's a system. And it's so important for anybody to have a system in place for their business. And if you don't have the system in place, it's really difficult to implement the AI. Yeah. So
No, I agree. There's so much leverage there because like I find I've written a couple GPTs for writing that I use that like I've trained on my voice, and that accelerates some of my writing process. And the team does a lot with content writing with AI because they've really trained our models with the brand voice because we know what we're saying, we know what we believe. Like we've already done the work to be able to give hyper specific, clear instructions, so we get a better draft that then of course we work on. We don't copy and paste AI content out there because that's just as foolish. But what I've spent with the PTs is looking at my business and saying, where do we spend labor on something that's repetitive? That we can speed up the process. So one thing we do is like we record all our communication with our clients so we can document things and move faster. And we use Google Meet. So we have our video, but we take the transcript that's created by Google Meet's AI and we take that and paste it into a GPT, and we instantly have a summary of the call that we can send to the client. Okay, here's the main action points. Theresa said she's going to do this. Gabe said she's going to do this. And then my project managers take 5 minutes to send a recap email because they still clean it up because AI doesn't always perfectly say what we want to say, but like the structure is there. And I probably cut 10 hours a week of labor out of the company on stuff that nobody wants to sit and write a summary email. If you have a tool that could do it for you.
Right.
So things like that, you're right. Like the more refinement and optimization we make top down all the way down into our departments or into each role, you can make work so much more fun and more efficient. And that's the power of AI. It's not, I love that the new, I forget, ChatGPT's video tools coming out. It's not out to the vast majority of us yet. Like all that stuff is amazing.
It is.
And I love playing with that stuff. I play with it a lot because it's good to learn it and I enjoy it. But you're exactly right. Like the real leverage with AI is how do we speed up this framework? So like I'm working on a new GPT right now that's going to pre-script my videos that I'm working on because we're going to lean really heavy into YouTube over the next few years.
Awesome.
And instead of me having to sit down and write a script from scratch, I can have GPT do at least half the work.
Yeah.
And the advantage of that is like when we can kickstart a task, we can overcome our natural resistance to starting something new because we're always in like the energy protection mode is our body's number one goal all the time.
Right.
So when we have like, when we're procrastinating or when we're just feeling like resistance to doing something, most of the time, many times at least, we are just resisting like shifting gears and putting energy into something new. So if we get something to kickstart that, or for lack of a better word, trick us into starting the project, then it's easier to start the project and we move faster. And so I love that you brought that up because there's so much power in building processes and systems. And now we have a tool that can make it easier for you to think. Like you could even just ask the most simple question and move faster. Like, how should I structure my leadership call next week? We're going to talk about these topics and it'll give you ideas down to, you can obviously give hyper specific instructions and custom code GPTs, but all of that can really make operations so much smoother. And operations is a part of marketing because if you operate effectively, you deliver a better customer result, they're happier. Everything is marketing in some senses, right? I don't know. I might get in trouble for saying that one too, but in some senses, it's like everything can tie back to how you show up in in your community, what your brand looks like. So
Absolutely. And when you're showing up as an efficient run machine and you get things done for your customer, it makes a big difference. Yeah. And
yeah,
I could see where some companies are going to embrace AI and they'll come out 6 months, 9 months from now, smoothly moving along still.
yep,
And the companies that are just, I'm not sure, I'm going to think about it. Those are the ones that, and I'm sure you're hearing this already, Gabe, those are the ones that won't have that advantage,
yeah,
unfortunately. Yeah. And you mentioned using ChatGPT to put together your video scripts. We had a
hmm
gal come talk to us at the Accelerated AI Club about the other tool, Claude. And there is a really cool difference between the two of them.
What is it again?
Claude, Claude.
I haven't used that one yet.
Check this out, Gabe. When you put stuff
Yeah,
into GPT, into chat, put that same prompt into Claude,
okay,
you're going to get a, a different style of response. It's a little
yeah,
cleaner to use. It doesn't have all the plugins to connect to the internet. So you do need to
hmm
convert web pages to text formats, and there's plenty of Chrome extensions that do that. But the Claude gives you a different option and a different perspective. Then there's another tool called WordTune. If you're like when you're getting up in the morning and you're having those wonderful thoughts coming to you, and you know you've got to share them somehow, if you speak it into Claude, into WordTune, and then tell WordTune, I need this to sound like a
Ryan
professional
Kurt.
presentation. I need this to sound like I'm having coffee with my friends and I had a great idea today.
Mm.
And it rearranges the words, the word choices, so that it comes across in a friendly tone or it comes across in a professional tone. I just thought it was a cool tool, WordTune.
I
But
think my
yeah,
I
check out
think my
that
copywriters
Claude.
are using that one, and I'll check out Claude too. That's awesome. I'm always looking for new things to experiment with.
Okay,
So,
I'm gonna give you one more.
all right, good.
You ready?
Yep.
It's called Perplexity.
All right. I've not heard of that one either.
This one actually will go to the point of verifying what you have. What it gives you, it
Wow,
verifies. And you can take what GPT gives you and put it into Perplexity and get Perplexity to verify it for you.
that's cool.
Yeah, isn't that
That's a good.
fun?
Yeah, we need that one. That's good.
You'll have to come
Yeah,
hang out with us at the Accelerated AI Club. Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the Accelerated AI Club. Yeah. We're in there sharing hints and
very cool.
the eyes got really big with learning more about this other tool, Claude.
Yeah, I've been using. It's called Gemini now. It was Bard for a short time,
Yeah.
but I really like Google's Gemini too because the cool thing there is like you can ask it to do things. It doesn't have a lot of features that ChatGPT has. It like all these have different flavors, but what I like about that one is it does pretty well when you give it clear prompts, and then I can click and put it in a Google Doc right away. And I know that feels like the smallest thing, but it's so easy to click, share to Google Doc, and then I'm editing and doing something else with
Right.
it and collaborating, which is super cool. So yeah, you're right. It's definitely worth exploring the different tools and figuring out which ones match for your needs. And you don't find a handful and stick with them, like you said. Don't get
Oh,
yours all the
yeah.
time because you'll go broke and your attention will be damaged even worse. Like you won't be moving forward. So I think that's great advice.
You'll be attention broke.
Yes, exactly. And it's our attention is always our biggest commodity. We know that as marketers, but our attention as entrepreneurs is so valuable and we need to treat it that way because if we're constantly pulled around or distracted, we'll never get traction on anything that we care about. So yeah.
I agree. And it goes back to the beginning of our conversation of just taking the time to meditate in the morning and to think about things. Don't get distracted and try to do a million things in the morning. Same with the AI. Stick with a
Yeah.
few things. Don't get distracted and try a million things at once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so as we wrap up here, thanks for hanging out.
This has
So
been
the
great.
accelerated yeah, so I'll definitely link out to people and they can check out the Accelerated AI Club because I know everything you put together is excellent and you have
Thank
some
you.
great stuff in there. And then just quickly as we close up, what are the types of things you're doing with clients? We touched on it a little bit. I know you're on Facebook ads, but what are the types of people that you're liking working with right now?
I'm working with basically information and service professionals. So information businesses, they've got a coaching program, they've got a course they're getting out there. I'm working with them in terms of going from the low six digits to the higher six digits. Service professionals, they're the people that like are styling your hair.
Hmm.
Yeah. The people that are your plumbers. I get calls once in a while for luxury travel agents.
Yeah,
Yeah. So service professionals. Yes.
very cool.
Those are key. And that's where I really shine with the media buying for them and helping them with their marketing and their funnels and their brand awareness.
Yeah,
And so definitely still available for that.
excellent. What's the best way for people to find you and connect with you?
The best way would be on LinkedIn or Facebook Messenger.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for hanging out, Teresa. This was a blast. I can't wait to share this with everybody, and we'll have you back again soon. But thanks for being a great friend of mine and taking good care of me and my team and our clients. And I'm grateful that we've had so many years to get to know each other and hang out. So I appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you. It's a joy and an honor to work with you and your team. They're such good people and they're so smart. Oh my gosh. Anybody who works with Gabe's team, you're lucky.
Thank
Thank
you so much.
you got it. Thank you for having me. This has been a treat.
Absolutely. Thanks, Teresa.
You're welcome.